Welcome. In this video we're going to talk about a factoring technique called factoring by grouping. Now factoring by grouping is a more specific type of factoring than our factoring in GCF. As you can see, it's useful for some four-term polynomials. It also works sometimes for bigger ones, but mostly with four terms is what we're focusing on. And we're really going to see its true effectiveness when we get into section 6.4 as we look at factoring those types of polynomials. So factoring by grouping is a factoring method that makes use of factoring the greatest common factor. So it's a good chance to have an application of factoring out the greatest common factor. So we begin with an example. The way factoring by grouping works is we typically group our four-term polynomial into two pairs. Okay? And we look at each of those two pairs individually. And we ask the question, what's the greatest common factor? And so here we have an x squared and a 2x, so we can pull out an x. And so we go ahead and do that. And so initially this problem is just the problem of, hey, we have to take the greatest common factor out of two problems. Then we go to the 3xy and the 6y. The plus sign there in the third term, it just follows down. And we have a 3xy and a 6y, so we can take a 3 out of both, and we can take a y out of both. And when we do that, we're left with x minus 2. Now, when factoring by grouping works, you're going to have the same thing showing up in both of those. In this case, we have an x minus 2 showing up in both. Before I finish this problem, consider the following problem. If I had xa plus 3ya, everybody would say, hey, a is in both of them. We can take it out as a common factor. And so we'd have a times x plus 3y. Well, if we look down here, this part that's been shaded in pink is being multiplied in each part. So it's actually a common factor. And so even though it's a quantity and not just a single variable, it can be factored out just like that a can. And so we take out the x minus 2, and we're left with an x plus 3y. And we now have the original polynomial written as a multiplication problem, which is the whole purpose and goal behind factoring. So that's how factoring by grouping works. In the next videos that we look at, we'll look at a few more examples of factoring by grouping. There also is a one small issue that does come up that we have to be careful with, and that happens when that third term happens to have a negative sign on it. There is one small little thing that we have to be concerned about, and we'll address that in the next examples.